Benoît Saint-Denis will wear down Mauricio Ruffy.
The oncoming freight train from France, Benoît Saint-Denis.
My style is simple, it's determination and violence inside the octagon.
Benoît Saint-Denis, I think he's going to go a very, very long way.
A lot of people were considering him one of the most violent fighters in the world.
This man is a former French Special Forces officer who is a straight-up killer inside the octagon. One of the most savage contenders to ever compete in any division.
The return of the God of War, French relentless warrior.
Ruffy vs BSD are set for the co-main event of UFC Paris, and although Ruffy is seen to be the favorite and a lot of fans are leaning with him, I'm here to tell you that BSD will not only beat Ruffy, but he'll dominate him as well. But quickly, before we get the video started, for those of you who may not know, I'm JuicyMMA, I make opinionated MMA content, and if you guys enjoy videos similar to this, hit that subscribe button, that like button, and that post notification bell. Also, if you guys are enjoying the videos and want to support the channel, be sure to hit that join button for members only live streams, videos, alongside with other perks as well. But anyways, let's get into it. When you talk about the career of BSD, it's definitely a very interesting one. Initially, when he got into the UFC, there was a ton of hype behind his name. And when you look at what he was able to do in 2023, it did feel as if he was building off of that hype and he was turning into a legitimate contender at the lightweight division. As in 2023, he beat guys like Matt Frevola as well as Thiago Moises. And in both of those performances, not only did he beat them, but he also was able to finish them, finishing Matt Frevola in the first round and finishing Moises in the second round. And when you look specifically at Matt Frevola and Thiago Moises, although the level of competition isn't necessarily the highest, at least at that time in 2023, both of those guys were coming off some pretty big wins, and both of those fighters at the time were perceived to be better fighters than they're perceived to be right now. So definitely those couple of wins in 2023 were very impressive for BSD, and because of those wins, he was then rewarded with a huge opportunity, as BSD's next fight after Matt Frevola was going to be up against Dustin Poirier. And although that fight didn't necessarily go the way BSD would have liked, in that first round he did have some pretty good moments, as he was able to take down Dustin Poirier repeatedly, out-grapple Poirier, control Poirier, threaten submissions, and although he wasn't able to get the finish in that first round, he did show a lot of good things. And I think after that performance, a lot of fans, including myself, still saw something in BSD and still saw him to be a potential contender in the future. But unfortunately, after that Poirier fight, things got significantly worse for BSD, as in his next fight against Renato Moicano, which was a huge step down in competition compared to Poirier, BSD got absolutely dominated, as in the first round of that fight he got taken down and smashed, and in the second round they eventually called a fight. So after a performance like that and a significant step down in competition in Renato Moicano, a lot of fans completely jumped off the BSD bandwagon, and at that point a lot of fans thought BSD was just an overhyped prospect that it wouldn't be very good at the lightweight division. Now in 2025, BSD was able to find a second round submission victory over an unranked fighter, but essentially at this point, fans for the most part are still not all that high on BSD. But a question that some of you may be wondering at this point is, what specifically does BSD do well out there? Why was he able to get a couple of really impressive wins throughout his UFC career? Well, in my opinion, it comes down to a couple different factors, but the first and main factor I want to touch upon is the grappling. Because when you watch BSD out there, it's pretty clear that his grappling is by far the best aspect of his game. In terms of his offensive wrestling, BSD does a really good job at this, as for the most part he is able to take down his opponents, and once the fight does get to the ground, he also has a phenomenal ability to control his opponents. We've seen this specifically in his fight versus Dustin Poirier, is in the first round of that fight, BSD was able to take Dustin down repeatedly in that first round, and once he was able to take Poirier down, he was also able to control him. But the great thing about BSD is he's not just a wrestler out there. He doesn't only have the ability to take you down and hold you down, but he also has a great understanding of jiu-jitsu as well, as on the ground BSD is constantly threatening submissions. We saw that in the Poirier fight, we saw that in a lot of his other performances as well, and I think due to the fact that his grappling is so complete, both in terms of his wrestling as well as his jiu-jitsu, is a huge reason for why I think he's been so successful in that area of his game. Because I talk about it all the time on videos and live streams of certain grapplers who have great jiu-jitsu but no wrestling, or great wrestling but no jiu-jitsu, and that really is a hindrance to their overall game. But the fact that BSD is able to do everything at a very very high level definitely does help and definitely does make him a true elite grappler. Now, the next reason for why I think BSD has been so successful thus far is due to his physicality. Now, physicality for BSD is not only hitting hard as well as taking shots really well, whereas of course he can do both of those things well. He has shown a really good chin throughout the most part of his UFC career, and he's also shown an ability to hit really hard. At the same time, I think BSD's physicality is mostly defined as his grappling physicality, as he is able to take guys down relatively easily, hold them down on the ground, and even on occasion when he does get taken down, like for example when Matt Frevola was able to take him down, BSD has shown a really good ability to just flip position or just get right back up. And specifically in that fight versus Matt Frevola, as soon as he got taken down, BSD immediately got back to his feet and found a finish not too long after that. So I do think BSD's physicality is also a huge reason for why he's been so successful thus far. But another question that some of you may be wondering at this point is, why do I think BSD is going to wear down Mauricio Ruffy? Well, in my opinion, it comes down to a couple different factors, but the first factor I want to touch upon is the grappling. Because when you watch some of Mauricio Ruffy's fights, he has stopped takedowns in the past, but with all that being said, he's never went up against a grappler of the caliber of BSD. And as I touched upon before, BSD is not just a jiu-jitsu guy or not just a wrestler. He has an ability to do both at a very high level. And I do think if he is able to push Ruffy alongside the cage, which I think he will be able to do, I think he'll be able to be successful on takedowns. I think he'll be able to control Ruffy on the ground and maybe even threaten or maybe even find a submission victory over Mauricio Ruffy. But the next reason for why I think BSD is going to be able to wear down Mauricio Ruffy is due to the gas tank issues or potential gas tank issues of Mauricio Ruffy. Because although we haven't seen Ruffy fight that many times, and usually when he does fight out there, he's getting a first or second round TKO, at the end of the day, we have seen a couple of different times where Ruffy has gassed out in a 3-round fight. So especially if BSD is able to implement that grappling style, consistently shooting for takedowns, being successful with them, once we get to the second or the third round, I am expecting Mauricio Ruffy to start to gas out. And at that point, I think BSD will have a much easier time at taking down Ruffy, at potentially finding ground and pound shots, at potentially even finding submissions. And I do think as the fight does progress and as we get closer and closer to that third round, I think BSD's life is going to be a lot easier and he's going to start to be a little bit more dominant as the fight does progress. But the last reason for why I think BSD will wear down Mauricio Ruffy is due to his pressure. Because on the feet, whenever you watch BSD fight out there, he's always on the pressure. He's always pushing his opponents alongside the cage. And really what that does is that opens up a couple of different things for him. For one, it makes it a lot more difficult for him to get countered, as when you're alongside the cage, it's just harder to move away from certain shots and counter effectively, but also at the same time, that allows BSD to shoot in for takedowns. And I think in this specific fight versus Mauricio Ruffy, that pressure style will kind of negate a lot of what Ruffy's trying to do out there on the feet. What Ruffy's going to try to do out there is counter the aggressive striking of BSD. BSD sometimes overextends into shots, and when you're talking about a guy like that going into a matchup against Mauricio Ruffy, that is very dangerous. But if Ruffy is alongside the cage and he doesn't have that much area to move around in, I do think it would make it a lot more difficult for Ruffy to find a perfect counter shot. And obviously, as I touched upon before, if Ruffy is alongside the cage, it also allows BSD to shoot in for takedowns, tiring out Mauricio Ruffy as the fight does progress. So overall, if I had to give my official prediction for this matchup, I would lean with a 3rd round submission for BSD. I think early on it could be dangerous for BSD. There is always the possibility that a great counter striker like Ruffy will be able to catch an aggressive striker like BSD, but at the end of the day, I think the pressure and I think the grappling will be too much for Mauricio Ruffy. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think BSD could legitimately get past Mauricio Ruffy, or do you not think so? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy, check one of these 2 videos popping up now, and until the next time, peace out guys.